But we'll bring it back here in studio as we continue then to talk about coalition government and the disasters that they can potentially be. We're now joined by political analyst and social commentator Masilela. Mr. Masilela, thank you so much for joining us. I know it's early hours of the morning. A lot of people don't want to be waking up at this hour, but there's a lot to talk about when we're looking at issues around coalition governments. And one of the things that, really became top of mind for me as I was speaking to Ms. Ndou and Samgele a little earlier on is that while it shows what people want at the polls, when we look at coalition governments, that people are now being spoiled for choice, that some of them feel like they've got more options. But while that may be good for democracy,
yes,
the egos that often get in the way may not be good for governments.
Yeah. No, I fully agree, Bongiwe. You see, coalitions by their nature, they really warrant the highest level of maturity politically, managing them in particular. They are not an easy thing just to get in that particular marriage and you must remember, this is a conglomeration of various leaders and political organizations with diverse background and diverse constituencies. They bring along those things. But the other critical factor is that South Africa hasn't grown to the level where it is able to distinguish between operational level of governance as well as policy level. Yeah. That is also the line which can assist coalitions moving forward. But seemingly when you look at these results, indeed we are heading for coalitions. As to how will they be managed, it will need extreme and superiority maturity from leaders. And I was listening to my colleague here, Prof, when he was explaining to you the challenges which are faced by this, You see, the other challenge is that in our country, you find that political parties tend to be married and pursue political issues rather than service delivery issues, particularly at local level. The distinctions between the national government as well as the provincial, this fear. And what is interesting, Bongiwe, is that you have these acts and regulations which are termed as intergovernmental relations mechanisms, which are supposed to be assisting all these role players in our governance in terms of integrating their efforts toward one singular objective, being to improve the service delivery and better the lives of our people. We have a tendency in the country of taking all this wonderful legislation, put them in the drawers and do something which totally doesn't speak to us. I doubt whether these leaders really do visit these legislations and guidelines, which must be able to assist them. Over and above what the Prof has said here, that you need to develop strong mechanisms. You must remember, coalitions is a new emerging type of a system in our country. I think it started emerging around 2016 when post the establishment of parties like the Freedom Front, and also as a result of the reaction of voters in terms of them yearning for service delivery. And you must also recall that all these other political parties, your EFF, your COPE, are splinter groups from the mother body, the ANC. That warranted a shift in terms of formulating the governance model that will fit that particular marriage of governance moving forward.
So, as you talk about these splinter groups, I then just want to tally at the back of what you're saying, because by virtue of them being splinter groups, signals that someone left because they were unhappy with something.
Okay.
Now, how important is the fact that internally, if things are going well within the political parties and there is harmony, how important is that for a coalition government? Because some internal, battles have played out, even in these marriages of convenience.
Agreed. We need to start by asking the questions why this emergence of the splinter group within the bigger political parties. We need to begin to analyze and address that particular thing. As you are correctly saying, the failure to manage the internal dynamics within a political party as big as the ANC, for an example, resulted in the splinter groups. And as they emerge, the divorce is not caused really by the issues which should cause them in terms of improving service delivery and bettering the lives of our people. It's petty issues, self-interested issues, hence our people are complaining throughout the country in terms of them not receiving service delivery. Now, the foundation of such splinter groups are not founded on the much stated objective of governance per se. They are founded on the basis of certain sectoral interests which are not in the interest of the very same parties, which are not in the interest of the country at large. Hence, they will limp, even being outside the bigger political parties. But what you need, because they are there, and we must learn to live with them, you need a mechanism which will ensure that. I was happy when I was listening to the CEO of the Freedom Front Plus. He was able to identify certain pertinent issues which, if addressed, might assist. Depolitization of municipalities and in strengthening monitoring mechanisms, and also ensuring that there is certainty in terms of the objectives of governance. In our country, Bongiwe, there is this tendency which I think is one of the downfall of governance in the country. Towards elections, as we're sitting here, yes, coming to this day of elections, political parties will contest each other. But after winning elections, the culture of political parties realigning themselves towards the common goal and the common good, that of governing the country, of ensuring that service delivery are reaching out to people, irrespective of the political affiliation. That is what's one other thing which is missing. We ever sitting and talking politics, even after the elections, instead of talking service delivery.
Now, Mr. Ndou, one of the things that Masilela is talking about is the sentiments that were shared by the CEO of FF Plus, right? And I'd like to pick one thing, the administration. Yes. And the fact that he says you need to have the right people within the administration. Yes. They need to know what they're doing. They need to be in the right positions, because we've seen the Auditor General saying that some of those that are put in positions can't even read financial statements. They don't even know the laws that are governing what they're doing. They don't understand anything. But how do you begin to do that when there's cadre deployment? And that cadre deployment is determined by which faction you belong to, and you need to appease the factions in order for you to stay in power, even from your own internal party. So how then do you speak to a Bongiwe who is in a position that they're not supposed to be occupying? Because as they say in the townships, a touch is a move. And it means there'll be repercussions for you internally, and you might not be able to now enjoy the power that you want to wield.
Well, I think we still have a long way to go. Firstly, in terms of having a clear distinction between the responsibilities of the politicians and the responsibilities of the administrators. A lot of politicians have found themselves on the wrong side of the law because they've crossed the line and wanted to deal with matters of administration. And that is one area that I think we still need to focus on and have a very clear line of distinction between the two. And what we have actually observed in the South African setup is that there seems to be a constant overlap between the two. And that creates very, very big problems. But the bigger problem in South Africa is that everybody is able to qualify to become a councillor. The requirements are very easy for one to be able to get access. It's age, it's registration as a voter, is citizenship. Those are the basic requirements for one to qualify to become a councillor. And when we look at issues that relates to the regulations that are supposed to be followed in a council, you require some level of education so that you are able to understand some details on what then is supposed to be done in terms of the laws, in terms of the budgets, in terms of HR and many other aspects. But if you have councillors who have got very minimal level of education, coupled with administrators who do not have skills, qualifications and expertise, then that municipality is actually destined to collapse. The ANC is quite proud of having deployment as its policy. And a lot of my colleagues would agree with me, and they argue that there is nothing wrong with deployment of cadres. But there is something very wrong in deploying people that cannot be able to execute the work that is actually required. If you take people that are not properly qualified, who are not skilled, who are there based on factional lines, coupled with politicians who will require some time to learn what is actually happening, you are not going to see any progress in that municipality. And you'll recall that just a few weeks ago, the Deputy Minister of Cocta was saying that about 70% of the councillors cannot be able even to use a computer. They've been given these things, but they can't use them. They don't understand the budget. They don't understand a lot of things. That then means that we have got a long way to go. And it will require all of us. And it must actually start somewhere. And political parties themselves have got a bigger role to play in this activity. Political parties are the ones that must give citizens the best of what they have. Look, we're talking about the provisioning of basic services. And obviously you need someone who has commitment, who is going to work in the interests of the people. But it's important to understand the dynamics, understand how the finances are supposed to be run, understand the priorities of your ward, understand how financial resources are actually getting into the municipality, so that you don't talk about things that you cannot deliver because you don't understand the finances in your own municipality.
I wonder, Mr. Masilela, one of the things that, we often do during such arrangements, it was done in 2016 that a kingmaker obviously gets that status and is elevated above obligations. They don't even get told what are some of their own responsibilities as they're coming into this arrangement as those that basically are wielding the power of how things can go. What would you say then would be the role of the kingmakers? Because when you listen to some of what, Action SA says, for example, it reminded me of 2016 all over again. Anything but the ANC. Let's remove the ANC.
Yes.
Let's make sure the ANC doesn't get to sit in that mayoral position, for example. But you don't hear anything about the core values.
Yeah.
You don't hear anything about the core of this arrangement. How then does the kingmaker begin to find themselves in this arrangement and make sure that it actually works and it's not about just removing that one obstacle that they're envisioning?
What it highlights, it begins to highlight the understanding of principles and values underpinning the very same title, Kingmaker, within our broader governance. And also linking it up with what the Prof was saying, the understanding of governance per se. In my assessment, these kingmakers are emerging out of anger and with the objective of revenging themselves for whatever reasons which they thought might be correct. In essence, it's very good when these kingmakers, independent candidates, and there's also smaller parties are emerging, even community organizations, because it enriches the principles of democracy moving forward. But as to the management of that particular thing, hence my view is that after elections, one would expect that all role players will concentrate. That's the reason why you have an IDP. And you have an IDP because it's a tool which rallies the role players towards. IDPs are adopted in a council, and they are a tool for development. Once adopted, one would expect all role players. The only shortfall about this IDP, in my assessment, most municipalities, particularly their budgeting processes, they talk about what based development, but they don't budget within that principles of what-based development.
And Mr. Masilela, I'm going to ask you to pause there for a second. We are going to continue to talk about this IDP because this integrated development program is supposed to ensure that everybody understands what they need to do. But if you've got over 70% of councillors who cannot even use the computers, where are they reading this IDP from? But I just want us to go to the floor as my colleagues Flo and Olisi are standing by to bring us reaction from the political parties. I'll begin with you, Flo. Who do you have there? And what do they make of what's on the leaderboard?
And we're going to just get their reaction in terms of how they're feeling with the results as they're coming in at this time. It doesn't look too great for the ACDP, if we are to be honest. I am joined by Norman Mkhonza, who's the ACDP's NDSG. Very good evening, morning to you. Thanks so very much for joining us on SABC News.
Thank you very much. A blessed morning to you too.
So let's speak the truth. It doesn't seem that ACDP has done as well as obviously you would have wanted to do. At this point, are you looking at problem areas, or are you looking to those regions where you think you still have an opportunity to make a difference for yourselves? I mean, if I look at that board, we're looking at that board, ACDP has not even shown in there and with the top political parties at this moment when we're looking at nationally. What are your views at this time, and how are you feeling about the fact that this is the reality of ACDP at this current time?
Okay, thank you very much. This board might be deceiving. Right. Yeah, because you only see like those there on the board, but you don't see what the ACDP is doing behind there. So currently, just to give you an update, that we've got 6 seats. Currently 4 in the Western Cape, 1 in Mpumalanga, 1 in Gauteng, which is in the Rand West. So basically, when you look at there, you are thinking, hey, ACDP is gone. No. We are still there. And just to give you an idea, we are contesting 145 municipalities. Yeah. Of the 145, only 40 are completed. So we still have 105 to go. So it's still too early to say we are not doing well. Yeah. We are doing well because obviously, even the percentage-wise, compared to 2016, we are far ahead. Even with the 58% that is counted already. Yeah. Yes.
No, look, there is a view, and you may correct it, of course, if that viewpoint is incorrect, that New Kids on the Block, ATM, which has a similar stance in terms of a movement that's, what's seen as for Christians. It's seen as though ATM is indeed, eating at your constituency. And I wonder how you're feeling about that. ATM has, in fact, shown itself on this leaderboard at this time. And if we're looking at it nationally, they are number 8 on that board, the African Transformation Movement at this time. Okay. There is some kind of a perception that they came in heavy and strong and certainly spoke to your constituency, spoke to Christians. And I wonder if that's something that you've been reflecting on as the ACDP. And if you did consider ATM as some sort of a threat, that they are speaking essentially to your people.
Yeah. Look, I will repeat again. What you see will deceive you, my sister. Look at their percentage. It's 0.65. We are standing at 0.75. So we are growing. So that's why I'm saying if you were to compare us with what you see, you would think that we are not growing. We are growing. We are sitting at 0.75. We are above them. So they might have 8 seats, 2 more than us. But in terms of growth, we are growing. Because remember, for the first time, the ACDP has contested over 52%. For the previous years, let's say 2016, we contested about 18%. So, I mean, we are growing 34%. So it's like we are growing, because if you were to look and compare us 2016 to now, you will see the growth. Let's say, for example, the Western Cape. 2016, we were sitting at 1.8%. Currently now, we are sitting at 3.4%. About 2.8, let me say. Yeah, to be exact, 2.8%. That's growth there. We are growing. Maybe they're taking from their father, which is the ANC. They're not taking definitely from us. They cannot take from us. Remember, there's many types of Christians. There are real Christians, and they're not so real Christians. So they are taking from the not so real Christian, not from the real Christians.
Well, I wonder about that. Your leader, Kenneth Misho, had raised an issue with the IEC. And look, the IEC has been getting some criticism from some of the political parties. If I remember correctly, Reverend Kenneth Misho had raised something about the ink. And, there was that the ink can easily be removed. The fact that he raised it means it's an important issue to the ACDP. Why was it so important for him to have to raise? How did that affect you, if at all, the issue of the ink?
No. Remember, that was just a general concern from all the parties. It was not specific to the ACDP. So it was just a general concern to say, why would this ink be easily removed? So it was not like we are saying we are losing votes because of that. No.
The comment is attributed to him in the news. But let's just continue in terms of why necessarily that was raised as an issue.
No, remember, when you raise an issue, it does not mean that that issue is the only issue that we are raising. If you raise the issue of the VMDs, it does not mean that that is the only issue. If an issue comes, then you speak about it and then they look at it. It's not like we are saying we are going to blame that. No, we have to raise issues as when they come. We cannot run away from issues, because you see, people want us to keep quiet, but we will speak where we have to speak. We will raise issues where we have to raise them. So it's not like it is a big issue to us. No. It's not that big. We are not scared, because remember, there's 101 more municipalities to go. Yeah. So we are not scared. We are just raising issues so that the IEC must solve them. Because if an issue comes, if our PAs, our party agents report, we have to also raise a concern. We can't just keep saying, this is a small issue. Yeah. So it's not a specific issue to our president, the Reverend Kenneth Misho. No. Yeah. It was just a general concern, even in the PLC. I sit in the PLC. It was raised in the PLC, not by the ACDP, but by other parties. So it was not to be specific to say it is the ACDP or the Reverend Kenneth Misho. Sometimes we want to make big things out of small things. So it's... Yeah.
Let's talk about what's now top of mind at the moment with a lot of the political parties. In fact, my colleague Patricia Fasahi was outside with the FF Plus, and they already, you can hear people are talking about the issue of coalitions. And this becomes very interesting terrain and conversations, particularly for those smaller parties when you want to make a statement. Are you considering, or maybe you already started to have certain conversations that I don't know of behind the scenes with other political parties? We heard, in fact, the FF Plus saying under no circumstances will we have any conversation or any coalition with the EFF and the ANC. And I think I'm going to ask you a two-pronged question here, Tatefana, in that, who will you absolutely not have any conversations regarding coalitions with? And if you have indeed started having those conversations, or perhaps even thoughts, can you let us in terms of with whom?
Okay. The conversations not yet started. And obviously, we have a national resolution that says we shall never put the ANC to be the government. That is the only resolution that we have. With the others, obviously, I cannot speak because that is the only resolution that we have, that we cannot put the ANC into power because we are in a mess because of them. The country is in a mess because of them. So therefore, it is just a national resolution that to say we're not going to be put the ANC into power because we know, I mean, we can speak a lot of things, so I don't want to talk about the negative things that are happening. It's there for everybody to see, but it is for us to fix those issues. Yes.
Mr. Norman Fana Mkonza, we appreciate your time. Thanks so very much for chatting with us. And we'll certainly be continuing to take a look at how you perform. I know you've warned me that there's still more coming and that I'm being deceived by this board. All right, okay, if you say so. All right, thanks very much for speaking to us and good luck to you and your party. That is the ACDP's NDSG Norman Fana Mkonza. They're saying that this board that we're looking at here by the IC won't want to hear that their board is deceiving, but in any case, that's what the ACDP is saying at this time. Let's cross over then to Mxolisi's